Hey, I'm Jonathan Copel here with Vinci Ory, who's running for St. Tammany Parish School Board District 10. We're going to figure out why she's running for school board, why she believes she's the best candidate, and her opinions and her views on some things. I wanted to get her voice out so you can hear what she has to say and listen for yourself. Hey, Vinci.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So I want to ask you, why are you running for school board, first off?
Loaded question.
Yeah.
My husband is a lifelong resident of St. Tammany Parish. I've lived here for more than 20 years. We have 6 children that we've raised in this parish. We have multiple businesses that we have across this parish. So we are vested in the long term success of this parish. And I think we can all agree that a strong, high achieving school system is the cornerstone of any thriving community. And I'm really concerned about what I'm seeing in our current school system. I have had kids in the school system for 16 plus continuous years, and that has given me a perspective. And I have seen the cracks in the system. Really, the clincher was when during COVID, someone asked me to step up and become a substitute teacher. And when I did that, I was really appalled at the lack of support that teachers had and the overall structure that our school system had. And, at that point, you start thinking, well, what's the issue? What's the problem? Why? Like, why am I seeing this? Why am I seeing the lack of success in our school system? We have all the puzzle pieces. We have community support. I know that because we have a $500 million budget. We have parental involvement. I know that because I have a child in middle school and the gym is still full of parents on parent night. So we have all the puzzle pieces, but we're still lacking in achievement. And why? Why? And so at some point, you have to ask yourself, who's going to step up? So I'm stepping up.
That's awesome. There's definitely a lot of cracks in the system, but I think we have all the puzzle pieces. But for a long time, people have just chosen to be what I consider passive. And so we really need some people that would be proactive in figuring out problems that are happening,
Yeah,
figuring out, yeah, the
yeah,
solutions, figuring out solutions, but then actually following through
thank
because
you. I love you saying that. That's
it,
exactly
it
right.
doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't happen. And so my husband and I have been business owners for many years, and I'm lucky to have the flexibility in my schedule. But my job in our businesses is I'm a problem solver. I don't work day to day in our business. I come in clutch. So when there's an issue or a problem, they present it to me. I come in, I look at it, and we come up with a solution. Okay, I come up with a solution, and then we check that solution later to see if it solved the problem. That's the issue with our school system right now. They do things and then there's no check afterwards. Like, let's just throw money into this, but it didn't actually solve the problem. That's not how you solve problems. You have to it's not a check and balance situation. It's just, hey, I've decided this is the solution. We throw money there, or we create some entire program. It's not effective. There's no check on the efficacy. That's not effective. And I'm confused about how this has gone on for this long.
Yeah, it's been a long time, and that kind of leads to the next thing I want to bring up about financial accountability. I know you spent some time, from what I understand, looking at the budget, where money's going, and it
Hmm.
just raised a lot of question marks on your end. A lot
Hmm.
of people want to know, are the people running for school board, are they for an audit? Are they for cleaning up the financial mess and good budgeting and good money management? And I just wanted to know your thoughts on financial accountability when it comes to the school board.
Mind blown. I'm mind blown that at this point we're still talking about budget transparency. So that is really a fundamental part of my goal when I get in there, is to say it's unconscionable, really, that we've gotten this far with a $500 million budget that we do not have line item accountability and transparency. Because how are we going to know if where we are spending our money is effective if we don't exactly know where the money is going? And I'm talking about even our constituents. Every stakeholder has a right to know where the money is going because it's their money. But even our school board members, who are supposed to vote on policies to further our district goals, don't know where exactly the money is going. We have broad generalizations. So if, for example, I spent over 40 hours looking at the school budget, and it was kind of a waste of time, because it's like looking at a big picture, and it's like saying, okay, transportation has X amount of dollars, but where's that transportation money going? Is it going to school bus drivers? Is it going to personal drivers for our, administration for different, I don't know, out of town forums that they go to? That's a whole nother issue. But anyway, so what I'm saying is that you don't know where the money is going, so you don't know if it's effective. When you spend money, you want to be able to track the money specifically so that you can see if the money is impacting your district goals. That's just common sense.
I think it's common sense as well. I think it's pretty silly to have an organization that has so much money and they just broadly categorize where it gets spent, but there's no specifics. That to me raises so many red flags of, well, who's getting it? Where's it being spent? Is there any money that's maybe being given to the wrong people, or it's being used for things that it's not supposed to be used for? That's going to take some work, but I'm glad to hear where you're at when it comes to financial accountability and transparency.
I would say even if you have 100% trust in the people that are in administration, which you would be a fool to have just 100% trust in any government agency. But if you have 100% trust in central office and administration, you still need accountability, because clearly the money that is being spent is not reaching district goals. We do not have schools that are nationally ranked. We do not have schools that are meeting the goals that our district wants to meet. So obviously we are not spending our money where we're producing results. So we have to reorganize that money. How do we do it? We don't know, because we're doing it blindly. We're blindly just putting money into accounts as a school board because we have abdicated our power to the superintendent and central office.
Yeah, that's what happens when you blindly follow the government. And this leads to another thing that a lot of parents are extremely concerned about, and even kids. When I taught, I had a couple girls had come up to me because they saw a news article and they knew I had did stuff with Turning Point USA, or they had saw me on the news, and they said, "Mr. Copel, am I going to have to share the locker room with a boy? And am I going to have to go to the bathroom and then boys are going to be in the bathroom? I'm like scared. Like, is this for real, or is this not happening?" And I said, I don't know if it's going to happen or not. I certainly would stand against it, but your parents need to get involved and share their thoughts on it. When it comes to the federal government pushing policy on our local school system that doesn't line up with our community, where do you stand, especially on the issue of the boys and the girls intermingling in the locker rooms and in the bathrooms?
That, again, mind blowing that we're even having this conversation. I'm just shocked at, from 20 years ago, where we are today, that we're even having this discussion. I absolutely am opposed to having biological males in locker rooms or bathrooms with biological females. That's it. There's nothing else to discuss. I mean, we
It's
have,
not that, to me, it's not that complicated of a topic.
right,
It's
it's
just,
not that complicated. It's not complicated. Biological males and biological females, especially minors, should not share bathrooms or locker rooms. And I don't care what your personal beliefs are at home about transgender and those types of things. I actually come from a social work background, very sensitive to that. But parents need to know that their children are being protected in the school and that their morals and values are translated in the school system as far as being protected. You know, you can teach your children at home your personal ideologies. Feel free to do that. I encourage you to do that. That's what parents are for. That's what your community organizations are for. Join all the community organizations that you would like to promote your own personal values and morals. But in the school, we're here to teach our children and not to push, political or ideological agendas.
yeah. And
That's
I just think if you're a local school board in the federal government or even the state, I feel like they should be limited. This is just my thoughts, in that our school board for St. Tammany Parish needs to represent our voters, our community, our stakeholders. That means our
100%.
employers, the students, the parents, the
100%.
custodians. That's everybody.
Everybody. Every
That's how I
stakeholder.
think it should be. I
Yeah,
don't think, I just, it's the Fed and the state has done a lot to get involved in the local school boards, and all we've seen is a decline in performance. And I think it's terrible.
agreed.
So
And it started with a really noble cause, and it was No Child Left Behind. That was a
yeah,
noble cause. It truly was, but it has been transformed into um, a very perverted system that really has done nothing for any child, really. So we do nothing for any child because we're leaving no child behind. So we haven't moved forward in our education system, in my opinion.
yeah. So I want to ask you about, because somebody put a comment, and I'm just going to show it. I don't know if you can read it or not, but I'll read it out loud. What's your thoughts on bus drivers' routes, lack of drivers, added pressures on drivers, and this? I'm going to finish this because
Yeah,
it's really, the teachers are also getting added. They're at
yeah,
workload. They have an added workload of things that I think are unnecessary, and there's a lack of teachers and a lack of bus drivers and a lack of other people. In my opinion, I think it's because the environment is garbage. If you work there, it's toxic. It's not a
yeah,
pleasant place to be. You're constantly worried about, if you see something wrong and want to fix it and go fix it and take the initiative, that
yeah.
maybe you're going to offend the administration because they think you're trying to make them look bad or whatever. So this really, I want to ask you your thoughts on taking care of the workers, the teachers, the bus drivers, the custodians, the cafeteria workers. And because from what I've seen working in the school systems, I didn't spend but like 3 or 4 years full time doing that, but I noticed that those people get left out a lot. So how would you appeal to them?
It's funny that you would say that because I was just thinking about, when I first got into this situation, it was because I became a substitute teacher, and I was really empathetic to the plight of the teacher. But as I've moved through this candidacy, I'm noticing that this is repeated between paras and school bus drivers and all. And what I'm hearing most from the feedback that I'm hearing most about why people are leaving the profession is because of lack of support from administration in terms of discipline and the way students behave. Behavior is a huge issue. I mean, let's be real. Most teachers and bus drivers and paras didn't come into this profession to become rich. So throwing money at them doesn't make them want to risk their lives or be treated every day. They're not able to really perform their jobs, and so more and more of them are leaving the profession, and the ones that are staying for whatever reason are overburdened, and we can't solve that problem until we get new people in there to help them. And we can't get new people in there until we solve the problem of discipline and pay. Listen, I'm not saying that they don't need to be paid more. Believe me, that's a whole, I could spend, how much time you got? How much time you got?
Well, look, as the parish is growing every year after year, the parish grows. So that means tax revenue grows, everything grows. So it only makes sense that the salaries of the teachers would have some sort of annual raise. They actually used to have annual increases, but I think it got frozen or capped or whatever. But I don't think money's the issue either. I think it has nothing to do with how much you get paid.
Money is not the issue, but there are long-term and short-term reasons why we are having a teacher shortage and a school bus driver shortage and a para shortage. Some of those reasons, like for example, teacher shortage, long-term, the reason why we're having a teacher shortage now is because, let's be real, 10 to 15 years ago, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, those professions started targeting female students and encouraging them to come into their profession, right? Because they offer respect and higher salary price points. So we are now seeing the effects of that logistic endeavor. And so we are seeing so many more female students go into that profession. I think the last thing that I read was like 51% of all STEM students are female, right?
Yeah, people, that's going to go over a lot of people's heads, but you have to put into perspective, the majority of the teaching profession,
I was going to say that,
female,
historically,
has always been female. And when I worked,
so long term,
3 or 4 guys. And so now all the women are going into, and God bless them, good for them. They're going into other professions.
I'm so happy about that. But like you're saying, so long term, what do? We have to start targeting, getting some of those females back. Also, look at you. You were in the profession, and had you not been so disrespected, it was an amazing profession, was it not? And we need more male teachers. They will speak so, it would be such an impact to our male students if we had more male teachers. It would be a win-win all the way around. But we're not going to win them over unless they can support their families and unless they have the benefits that you see in the other professional professions.
Yeah.
So, but that's a long-term solution.
Yeah, and that's something that that's a big
one.
Yeah, but on our micro level, I think the environment and the focus on the behavior and then the workload, and just respecting the employees. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I was at a school board meeting and they had a bus driver, a Black woman showed up, and she was basically crying because she felt that she was a victim of bullying and even some racism by some other people, other bus drivers that made fun of her. And she kept reporting it to the administration, to the school board, never even got a response. And then she showed up to a meeting, literally just, crying, sharing her experience. And
let me guess, no response.
Well, yeah, probably no response. I haven't gotten to follow up with her, but all that to say, the environment plays a lot. It's a big role, and nobody wants to work in a bad environment.
That's the short-term solution. Let's focus on fair, disciplined protocols that are enforced in every school and in every situation. Teachers should not be subjected to violence in the classroom, to verbal abuse, to any of those things. That would go a long way.
And there's legislation. It's so funny that's for teachers and how they're supposed to be treated as a standard. It's outdated, where a teacher is supposed to be able to be called Mr. or Mrs. or Miss.
That's a law, right?
Yeah, it's law, but it's law. Of course, so it just has to be enforced in a way that works for 2022, 2023.
I agree.
Like, we just have to figure out how do we create this environment that we're supposed to have for the workers, to where they can enjoy work. And when they enjoy their jobs, it's going to bleed into the lives of the students. It's going to improve the whole system overall, in my opinion. So I think it's important to, get a focus on the workers.
I agree with you on that, is because there are differences in morale in different schools. You can go into some schools where the administration is a little more, organized and disciplined in their protocols, and the morale of those teachers is different than the morale of others. And I know that because I've seen it as being a sub working across the parish.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I agree with you on that 100%.
So the last thing I'm going to ask you about is, what are your thoughts? Because this came up. It was like half the board was for it and half was against it. Public comment on non-agenda items. This is extremely important to a lot of people because a lot of people have tried to get things to be an agenda item, and it doesn't happen. Even Brant Osborne had mentioned that he knows people that tried to get stuff on the agenda. It's next to impossible. And sometimes the only way to bring it's always problems. It's never, nobody's just going to the public comment section to say how wonderful things are, unfortunately.
Yeah. Right.
What are your thoughts on that? Is it important? Is it something that you would welcome teachers and workers and parents to be involved in? What do you think about the public comment section for the school board meetings?
I've written on, actually, this was a question on some candidate survey, and I can't remember which one it was. And I think that the school board in general needs a lot of policy reform, but not hearing from your constituents is sacrilegious. I mean, why are we not hearing from our stakeholders? I don't care if it takes, now I understand about efficacy and efficiency and all that kind of stuff. So we can put parameters on it, not where you're standing by the, desk and like snatching the clipboard away.
To make sure somebody can't sign up.
Yeah, can't sign up.
A minute late because of the parking spot or nonsense.
Right, nonsense. That's nonsense. So one thing that I had suggested in, some candidate suggestion was that, there are an infinite number of solutions, but one that would be super, simple would be that every board member, because this really appalled me, that board members are not allowed to put things on the agenda. It only comes from the president of the board and the superintendent. Now, it's a school board meeting. Why can't individual board members put things on the agenda? Now, maybe every board member can't put like 10 things on the board, on the agenda. I get that. Maybe you only get so many things,
per week or per month or something, but be able to do it.
So then your constituents can come to you and say, hey, I'm having this issue and I need to speak at the board, or I want to put this on the agenda, or what have you. And you put it on the board, or, before the board, or put it on the agenda or whatever. And then your constituents can hold you accountable, right? If you don't do it. Right. So let's say I get elected to District 10 and there are constituents that have issues and they come to me and say, hey, I'd like to speak. And I have 3 free cards to, divvy out for that, whatever, quarter, whatever. We can come up with the numbers, right? If I don't grant those to, fairly or what have you, my constituents can hold me accountable at some point through voting. That's what you're supposed to do. But at this point, I don't feel constituents can hold very many people accountable for not being able to speak, because we actually have no say unless you are a good old boy backroom, situation. That's the only way you get something on the agenda. A friend of mine who's on the board has been on there for 4 years, and I think she's had multiple requests, and she's on the board, and I think she's gotten one thing on the agenda in 4 years.
Yeah, that whole system needs to get a hit with a hammer, and that's what I attempted to do with me getting involved in this whole. Yeah, it definitely did not. I mean, I didn't expect it to go how it went. I expected to shake things up, but it really shook stuff up.
You did shake things up. It's fine. I mean, I'm hoping, you know what's like, I'm not beholden to anyone. I'm running as an independent. I've not accepted any campaign contributions from anyone. I've not signed any pledges. I haven't pinky promised anyone. I've not drunk the Kool-Aid. I'm not doing any of the things. So when I get on this board, I will be completely independent from my constituents. Every stakeholder will have access to me, and I will be a voice for every stakeholder because I'm completely independent. I don't have, you know, I loved what another candidate said. I cannot be bought and I cannot be bullied. And I feel the same way.
That's unique. It's very different. One final thing. I know I said the other thing was the last thing.
Right?
This one's really important to people because it happened, right? And who knows, it could happen again. The shutdowns of the schools were done based off of recommendations from the federal government, and the states and local school boards decided to just go with the flow. They didn't raise any eyebrows. They didn't really oppose it. They just went with it because they said they were told do it or else, which is extremely un-American. It's not, it is not American at all. Some states defied the rules. They were fined and they got pushed back mostly in the media, but their people were happy. Their constituents were happy. And they basically did what the constituents wanted. If the federal government ever came back at us again and said, hey, we have to close the schools because of X, Y, and Z, what is your initial response to that? Because the government is really supposed to protect my rights, not look out for my health. Because if they were concerned about my health, we would not have McDonald's, we would not have processed sugar, and we would not be able to drink Coca-Cola 24/7. Like that's just my thoughts. I think they do a terrible job protecting health. I think they're supposed to protect my rights. So what's your thoughts if the government says from the Fed, shut down the schools and yet all the kids have to do X, Y, and Z, but the parents are completely opposed to it?
So this really hits close to home because all of my businesses were shut down because of the feds. We own a hair salon, we own a tanning salon, we own a hair extension business. We were not allowed to operate. And so this was my livelihood, right? We were shut down for months. And it really touches home when you're saying it, because it's like, I thought, as being self-employed, the American dream is to be self-employed, to own businesses, to employ people. I had employees that I had to, say, we can't operate. How are they going to pay their bills? Luckily, we had money in reserve. We helped them as much as we could. And we found loopholes as much as we could. But, so in saying that, I'm a person of integrity that usually follows the law and follows the rule of law. And so I was in conflict. I was really in conflict because I did not feel like this was the American, within my rights. I thought I was violating my rights. And so we really had to come to Jesus, and had to say we were going to find a way to open back up. And I would have to find a way to open our schools back up. I would have to find a way to accommodate my constituents and their desires and their needs. I would find a way. If I felt like it was against our, violating our rights, I really would. I had to do this in my own business, and it was a struggle. It really was a struggle, and I'm disappointed that any of us had to go through that, to be honest with you. I'm really disappointed that we had to feel like we had to go, make a decision between violating what was a mandate and doing what we thought was right for our employees and for our community and for ourselves. And I would have that same attitude on the board, that I would have to do what was right, not what was necessarily legal. That's the big moral dilemma, right, that we go through.
Yeah, it sure is. Well, we're right at a half an hour. I have one more thing I want to ask you. Gosh, it's an important, people are going to share this and it's going to be helpful, but
Okay.
your thoughts and how you view medical freedom for students, because they're adding a injection on the school shot list for kids to have, and a lot of parents are against it and they don't want to be forced. I mean, what do you think?
I'm for medical freedom. I think parents should have the right to decide what is best for their children. They can opt out and they can just write, there's lots of, now there are lots of loopholes for parents for, vaccinations. And you can write your reasons why. And so parents need to be in charge of their children. We need to give parents back their autonomy. We need to give teachers back their autonomy. We need to give the school board back their autonomy. We need to stop letting the federal government and centralized power dictate how we live our lives. I think, Ronald Reagan made a statement to that effect, that centralized power is, an affront to liberty. That was kind of his thing. And I agree with that. We need to give it back to the people, that parents, teachers, diffused power is best.
Well, I tell you what, I appreciate you being on here and sharing everything. I hope you do really well. I hope you win. You got my full support. And I hope if you win, you take the sledgehammer and you just break the system and just tear it apart, because it needs to be rebuilt.
Well, I tell people, only vote for me if you want real change. If you want just a change on the placard, and you just want change, but you want old school, don't vote for me. Only vote for me if you want real change, because we're gonna change the balance of power here. We're gonna change how we're doing things. We're going to change how we look at things, and we're going to change the results, because I'm going to be very results driven.
Well, I hope it all works out. So anyways, thank you guys. If you watch this, please like, share, and write comments. Post this link everywhere so as many people in St. Tammany Parish can see this interview with Vinci and I. All right. Well, I'll see you around.
Bye.
Bye-bye now.